Hey guys, I'm Eden.
And I'm Lily Holscher.
I'm Bailey Foran.
I'm Katie Votava.
And I'm Jamie Moffat.
And today we're all going to be speaking about the qualities of the house cat.
So, hi everyone. I'm here to give you a brief overview of the history of domestic cat breeds. Because, as you've probably noticed, the domestic cat is not one single type of cat. We have a whole bunch of different looks for the cat, whether they have flat faces like the Persians or they're long and thin like the Siamese cats. There are so many different ways that a domestic house cat can look, but they all came from the same prehistoric ancestor. And here is its name. I'm not going to attempt to say that because I will probably not pronounce it correctly. But it's important to know that all the cats we know today came from the same creature. About 11.5 million years ago, what we know as the big cats and the little cats split apart on their different evolutionary paths. The big cats all fall under, well, mostly fall under the name Panthera, whereas the little cats are called Felidae. And our little house cats that we have are Felis domesticus. They are under the little cat section. The ancient Egyptians were the first society to become cat fanciers. They were the precursor to how we feel about cats in the modern world. Many ancient prehistoric people had already been living with cats long before the ancient Egyptians. People have found fossils of small cats living in ancient towns, and they probably first started coming to live with people mostly because people had a lot of vermin like rats and mice around them, and that's what the cats were attracted to hunt. And that's probably how they started living with people in ancient Egypt. But they had a very specific role for a while, that they would live in the grain stores where the ancient Egyptians would keep the grain that they harvested. And this was important because cats would hunt the rodents who would come to eat the grain, but they would also scare away any snakes that would come after the rodents. And it was dangerous to have snakes in the grain stores because when people would come in to get grain out, they might be bitten by a snake. And because cats were so important and kept the grain stores safe, then the ancient Egyptians started to take them into their homes. They respected them. They started to revere and deify them, which means they almost worshiped them like gods. In fact, they had a very important goddess named Bastet, who was a cat. And the cats meant a lot to the ancient Egyptians. In fact, when the family cat died, it was tradition that everyone in the household would shave off their eyebrows, and that their period of grieving for their dead cat lasted until everyone's eyebrows grew back. They that's how much the cats meant to them, that they gave them so much time to remember them and be sad when they were dead. Now, the evolution and mutation of the cat breeds is interesting because almost every different breed started from a spontaneous mutation, which means that a cat would just suddenly appear randomly out of nowhere with a new feature, like the Scottish Fold, which was first seen in Scotland in 1961. They are cute little cats with folded over ears. They kind of look like owls because they don't have big pointy ears like the rest of the cats. But they just showed up. It was one cat with folded ears. And then people liked that and so started to breed them to create a whole new cat with folded ears. The American Curl was found much the same way. It was a random mutation that showed up in Lakewood, California in the year 1981. They have a gene that makes their ears curl over backwards instead of the Scottish folds that fold forwards. The Rex cats, the Cornish Rex, the Devon Rex, they all came from different genes that caused their hair to grow differently. A lot of Rex cats have very curly hair. And that was, again, just another interesting accident. Nobody bred a cat to have curly hair on purpose, but people started to create different breeds around these strange mutations that occurred. Now, there are a lot of regional legends, depending on where you are, about the creation of different cat breeds. And while these don't line up with what we know about science and genetics now, I like them because they add a certain magic and mystery, and cats have that flavor to them already. They seem like a very magical and mysterious animal. One of my personal favorites comes from the Middle East, about the creation of the first Persian cat, which you know are those cats with the funny squished faces that look like they're mad all the time. And that legend says that a magician took a swirl of smoke and the light of 2 stars from the sky and molded them into the first Persian, which was a soft gray long-haired cat with burning eyes like stars. You also have to be careful when researching the origins of house cat breeds, because there tend to be false origins. Like Ann Baker, one of the first breeders of ragdoll cats, told a very interesting story that was accepted for a while, that her cat Josephine, who had been kind of a wild feral cat, was hit by a car, and then because of her injuries became a very peaceful, low energy cat who didn't struggle when you picked her up. And the claim was that all of her kittens were the exact same way just because the mother cat had been hit by a car. And that is one of the trademarks of the ragdoll breed, is that there are a very low energy cat that they go floppy and limp when you pick them up. But from what we know now, that has nothing to do with the fact that Josephine was hit by a car. Another thing I find very interesting personally is that cats are not that far removed from their wild ancestors. What I have a picture of here is a European wildcat. These still live in the wild in the forests of Europe, even though they look a lot like a house cat, they are not. And that's, if you think about cats and compare them to dogs, you know, people have bred dogs so differently. We have the huge Great Dane and St. Bernard and the teeny tiny Chihuahua and the Dachshund, and most of those breeds would not have a very easy time surviving in the wild. But cats, who have not changed that much except for curly hair or folded ears, most of them can easily revert back to survival in the wild if they are given the tools to do so. Some of the ones that wouldn't be able to would be the Persians, because they have breathing problems because of their flat faces. But many of the other cats are still pretty well suited to hunting on their own, living on their own. And in fact, it doesn't take that many generations for kittens born of a former house cat to actually become, in essence, wild cats. It doesn't take very long for those generations to go completely back to a wild state. And one more note that I would like to touch on before moving on is that there's some very interesting cultural differences of opinion between the Eastern Hemisphere of the world and the Western Hemisphere. In the Eastern Hemisphere, especially in like the Asian countries, cats have always been loved and respected as a symbol of good luck. And even sometimes the cats were considered holy, like the Burman cat. One of the interesting legends about the reason it's colored the way it is that the Burman cats used to live in the temples and monasteries of monks over there. And they, especially one cat who was thought to be the first Burman, was the companion of a holy man who, when the holy man died, his cat touched him, and the holy essence of this man went into his cat. And so the cat's eyes turned blue, its fur turned golden, and its paws turned pure white where it had touched this holy monk. And so those cats are still respected today and thought of as something otherworldly and good. Whereas in the Western Hemisphere, especially in Europe, cats have had a much more difficult time of it. They were thought of as demons and the pets of witches. They were thought to be evil and bring bad luck into people's lives. And that is why even today in modern America and Europe, black cats still have a much lower adoption rate from shelters, because that superstition still sticks, and a lot of people just think that cats are an evil creature, but this is certainly not true. It's just a superstition which has lasted from a long time ago. And so that is all I have to say on breeds and history right now, and I will pass this presentation over to Eden to talk about the anatomy of your usual little house cat.
All right, so knowing the anatomy of a cat is essential if you end up wanting to show your cat. So here I'll go over some of the basic parts of your house cat. First, we have the muzzle, and the muzzle includes the nose and the mouth area of the cat. It also consists of the area where the whiskers come out of the cat's face. We also have the forelimbs, which are the front legs of the cat. This includes like the paws and the entire leg itself. We have the hind limbs, which are the back legs. The abdomen of the cat is the belly, which is underneath the cat. We have this stifle, and that is the knee. We have the hock, which is the ankle of the cat. You can see that it projects from above the paw. We have the nape, which is another word for the neck. We have the flank, which is the cat's side. This is also commonly referred to as just the cat's fur. We have the loin, which is the lower back. And then we also have the shank, which is the lower leg of the cat. So aside from all of those parts of the cat, I also have some fun facts to share. Number one, cats only need 1/6 of the light that humans need to see in the dark, because they have a structure in their eyes called the tapetum lucidum. Number two, a cat's tail consists of 10% of its bones, and it helps to keep the cat balanced while walking. This is why snow leopards have such long tails, because they need to keep balanced when they're jumping. Number three, whiskers allow a cat to detect shifts in air pressure and to determine whether or not they can fit in a narrow space. Number four, a cat's genome is actually 95.6% tiger, which goes back to kind of the history of cats, of how they're related to their ancestors so closely. Number five, cats can taste scents in the air. They do this by opening their mouths, and the scent hits the receptors in the roof of their mouth. Number six, cats have 230 bones, while humans only have 206. And next, Katie is going to talk about the cat behavior and communication.
Okay, so their body language consists of all kinds of different things. When they're interested, they might cock their heads, their eyes might be wide. When they're friendly, their tail sticks straight up. When they're attentive, you can see that their ears are perked up, and they might be facing towards you. When they're relaxed or satisfied, they lay down on their side and their tail goes wherever their ears are forward. You can see the eyes are slightly closed, which means that they are vulnerable, because cats, when they close their eyes, it means that they're vulnerable. This is mine, so they'll rub against things like furniture or like their owner's legs. They're marking their territory. Another friendly symbol is their eyes being shut again, and their tail sometimes moving around. When they're cautious, their tail is going to be stiff. and their ears are going to be perked towards what they're cautious towards, and their steps are going to be very careful. And then again, when they trust you, they'll lie on their backs and they'll show you their bellies, and their eyes will be slightly opened. Let's play good to see you. When they go up and scratch on their scratching post or even up on your leg, they're excited to see you. They curl up in a ball when they're worried. The ears go out to the side. Like when they're anxious, their ears are out to the side. Eyes are big, their tail is stiff, and they crouch down low. So with wagging their tails, sometimes it's happy. Like this is irritated. So when it's a stiff flop, and yeah, just hitting the floor, that's irritated. Frightened, their tails curl back and they get hunched up. The ears are to the side. Super terrified. This cat is hissing, its ears are flat, its tail is puffed up, and it is hunched over. This next focus cat looks like he's maybe playing or watching something, so his eyes are just very much on it. He's getting down low like cats do when they stalk prey. And then hunting is they get down low and their eyes are very wide on what they're going for. So other behaviors, if your house cat runs around and jumps up on things just to jump off of that, they're just following their natural instincts. Wild cats jump down from trees and climb trees, and they just have that sort of energy. When a cat digs their claws in and out of something like this, it means that they're kneading, which means that the cat is comfortable or content with you. And kittens also need to stimulate milk production in their mother. If your cat doesn't cover their waist in the litter box, it means that they're angry with the owner or they're upset about something. Like maybe you need to change the litter more often or feed them. Covering waist. So cats cover their waist in the litter box because they don't want to leave their scent for predators to find. Twitching ears can mean that they're agitated or anxious. They don't like their ears being touched. Sometimes if you ever touch a cat's ears and they twitch it, it's just a little irritant. When they stare at something with an open mouth, oftentimes it's right after they smell something. Like Eden mentioned, they open their mouths because they have something called phlegm on the roof of their mouth, because the smell was too complex just for their nose. When cats lay on their stuff, they either want warmth or they want attention. So if they sit on your homework or your laptop or a heater, it's because it's warm, or they're also mirroring what their human does. Hissing or growling, so leave the cat alone or walk away because it's really upset and you're not going to make it feel better because they want to be alone. When they arch their back or they stretch out their belly, they most likely want attention. Purring, so sometimes it means it's a happy purr. Sometimes cats can purr when they're uncomfortable or anxious. So it's really, you have to look at the other body language, like if their ears are back, if their eyes are just popping out of their head and they're stiff, it's an anxious purr. But if the cat is like kneading or their eyes are, they're slowly blinking and their ears are forward and their whiskers are out, it means that it's a happy purr. So the twitching tail can be excited. If your cat goes outside and then it brings you back a dead mice or a bird, it means that it wants to help you make dinner. So it's kind of like presents. Your cat is doing something nice for you, even though it's unpleasant. They don't know that. When they bonk their head into you, that's their way of showing love and affection. If you see like wild cats, they always bump into each other with their heads. If they scratch furniture, they may be sharpening their claws or asking for attention. Dilated pupils can mean that it's playtime. So when their eyes get really small, they're gonna get really focused on something and they're ready to play. So it might not mean if they're like batting at you, it might not mean they're angry. It might be playtime. Direct eye contact means that the cat trusts you. And like I said earlier, slowly blinking is love and trust. So cats close their eyes when they trust because it makes them vulnerable or exposed or maybe sleepy. If your cat licks you, it's another way of showing affection or it's accepting you. If it's your hair, they might think that they're grooming you. When they flatten their ears, it's because they smell something new or they're worried or upset. So again, check the rest of the body language. And then rubbing against you is marking their scent on you. And some cats show affection just by lingering around you or following the house. A lot of people complain like, my cat doesn't like me or it's not cuddly. Not all cats like to be picked up or cuddle with you or sit on your lap. A lot of cats show affection in different ways, just like people or dogs or other animals. So now I'm going to hand it off to Jamie, and she's going to talk about the next subject.
Okay, so like most other animals, cats do need to be groomed, although it isn't necessary because most cats do groom themselves. It can be helpful when coming to, like if a cat has mats in its fur. So some tools you will need when grooming your cat are a bristle brush, a metal comb, a fine-tooth flea comb, and nail clippers. Also, most cats' nails can get pretty long, so you will need to trim them. Cats have a sensitive area in their claws called a quig, so make sure to be very careful to not cut it when trimming their claws. Also, many cats do not like to have their nails trimmed, so sometimes wrapping them in a towel can make it a lot easier, so they are less likely to scratch you. Now on to talking about bathing. So most cats bathe themselves, but bathing can be used to help get rid of mats in your cat's furs. And also many cats do not like water, so be very careful when bathing them. And like I said before, most cats do bathe themselves. And if your cat is dirty, dry shampoo can be a great alternative. Some tools you will need to bathe your cat are cat-friendly shampoo, a sink or bathtub filled with warm water, and a towel. And if you are thinking of bathing your cat, make sure to get help from an adult. Now on to Eden, who will be talking about the responsibilities of cat ownership.
If a cat doesn't like their food, they've actually been known to starve themselves. And cats, as Lily stated, are apex predators, really good at hunting, and can go feral fairly quickly. So it is recommended that you keep your cats indoor, as outdoor cats have been found to be contributing to 33 extinctions around the world and counting, to say nothing of their potential to spread deadly diseases like rabies and toxoplasmosis, along with a single feline eradicating an endangered species of birds in the Stephen Islands, their little wren, in New Zealand. Cats are also very good at breeding, so fixing them is a must. There is actually an island just kind of off the coast of Japan that is literally full of feral cats. And that might seem like cute because a lot of cats, but They aren't exactly the friendliest things. These are some pictures of what can happen if you let your cat just kind of be wild or let them go outside, because just because they're a good hunter doesn't mean that they're good at hiding or not being hunted. And things like coyotes do enjoy the quote-unquote easy meal. Some more responsibilities is you're going to need some toys. Even though cats are known to like take care of themselves and not need 24/7 human interaction as dogs do, they still need something to play around with. They can range drastically though. You can use boxes, strings, and stuffed animals are technically free toys that you can just find around. Cat trees can go from $50 to $200 depending on the size and number of levels. A scratching post ranges from $10 to $30, and mouse toys range from 99 cents to $7, with robotic toys being 10 to 15. As you can see, cats are kind of expensive to own, with food being like $20 each month, depending upon brand, size, and age group of the cats the brand is directed towards. So you have to keep the financial aspect of cat ownership in mind if you're thinking about owning a cat. Some healthcare. Some people do think about possibly declawing their cat, which can cost $100 to $250. However, this is outlawed in some states in the US because it removes the claw and the first knuckle on the cat, which can lead to infection, arthritis, and they do use litter boxes, and they can get some litter and other things up inside there, which could be very dangerous for the cat. Spaying is more expensive than neutering, so if you're debating between male or female, just know that to spay, it can be $300 to $500, while neutering is only $200, give or take. And there are random vet visits that you're going to have to kind of take into the equation, which can range from as little to $50 to thousands of dollars, depending upon the reason. Now, there are the flat-faced cats and the normal-faced cats, I guess, and they have their own little health problems. Keratosis is a corneal inflammation which the eyelids do not close fully when blinking, and it leads to like long-term light exposure, which can blind the cat if left to get worse. There's a lot of eye discharge because their skull shape doesn't really allow the tears to actually drain through the nasal cavity, so it actually comes out into their fur, giving them the quote-unquote goop that a lot of people like to pick out of their eyes. They also have a lot of breathing issues, as Lily stated earlier, because they have like the squished in face, and they have the smaller nose slits, elongated soft palate, which is basically the roof of the mouth, and they're kind of forced to breathe through their mouth, which isn't natural for cats, as Eden kind of showed earlier, because that's normally only for dealing with hardcore scents that they don't really want their nose to deal solely with. They also have a lot of dental problems. There's malformation of the skull, which can lead to misalignment of the jaws, so they can't chew or bite properly, which leads to starvation and emaciation, which is not healthy for a cat. They also have facial dermatitis. Because of how the skull is formed, their fur is folded, which means that if you do not clean it properly, there will be like mold and bacteria just growing within those folds, and it will spread and just cause more damage to the cat. Our next slide deals with the quote-unquote normal-faced cats. These guys some of these are typical for flat face as well, such as vomiting. It occurs for a variety of reasons, ranging from eating something they shouldn't have to a UTI, urinary tract infection or disease. diabetes infection, or just some hairballs that they have stuck in there and they can't quite get out. They are known for, if you let them get overweight or unfit, they commonly do get lower urinary tract diseases. This also happens if they eat like too much dry food, and can also be caused by stress, which can happen if there are multiple cats in a house or a sudden change in the environment. And fleas are kind of common, but they're easy to treat once you catch them, so it's not a huge, like, big vet bill you have to worry about. You just want to make sure that they don't eat a flea, because then that can lead to tapeworms, which can also lead to diarrhea, which is normally caused by intestinal parasites, spoiled food, allergies, infection, liver disease, cancer, or other issues. So if they have excessive diarrhea, you might want to get your cat checked out to make sure it's not something majorly serious. They also have eye problems, which range from conjunctivitis, corneal ulcer, cataracts, glaucoma, trauma, viruses, inflammation, and retinal diseases. And that's all we really have to talk about today. I hope we covered enough information. Feel free to ask any questions by comments or emails if you need to. But thank you for listening.